So 2020 has certainly been an odd year, and I definitely hope that 2021 will be better. And one of the things that certainly helps me to get more excited for the upcoming month is to set up my bullet journal. So that's what we're gonna do. If you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know that I like to use letter stickers for my title pages in particular, just because my calligraphy definitely leaves something to be desired, and I like my title pages to be much neater. And here I did that again with some silver letter stickers that I hope will go well with my theme, which is pine trees. And I know that this isn't really a unique theme, it has been done before, but while researching it, I haven't actually seen anyone do it in quite the same way that I'm about to show you, so I hope that I was able to put my own little spin on it. But you'll be the judge of that once you see the entire setup. Overall though, this is a really simple theme. Basically, I'm just doodling a bunch of pine trees in various different shapes and sizes, and when I'm done with that, I'm going to color in the trunks with 2 different shades of brown, and then color in the trees themselves with several different shades of green, just to give things a little bit more variety. And you'll notice that I'm not actually being super careful with how I color things in, just because I find that I actually really like that sort of sketchy, doodly look to my drawings. And when the left side, which is arguably the more important part of the spread, was complete, I moved over to the right for my looking forward to section. And this is pretty much just a section for me to write down everything that I'm looking forward to for the upcoming month. And I find that having a section like that actually really helps me to start the month on a more positive note. And if you tend to have trouble with, well, starting the month off on a more negative note, then I definitely recommend adding in something like this. Anyways, I continued the pine tree theme here on the right by adding a slightly larger pine tree and decorating the spread just a little bit more with a few stamps, which I don't think I've ever shown you in my videos before, but they're fairly new and I actually really enjoy using them, so I will be using them a little bit more in this setup. So anyways, I added some snowflake stamps and a little bit of washi tape. Moving on to the next spread, this is actually going to be a calendar spread, and this is the first time I'm doing a larger calendar like this, so it was a little bit of a challenge for me, and I decided to tackle that challenge by actually using these round green sticky notes instead of drawing it out by hand, just to sort of help me arrange things in the right way, because I really wasn't sure that I'd be able to do it without making a mistake the first time around. And if you do have some sticky notes like that, then I highly recommend this, it helped me a lot. And if not, then you can always use some construction paper and cut out either little circles or squares, or some scrapbooking paper, or even print out some little circles or squares that you can cut out and then arrange on your spread. Unless of course you're already a pro at creating calendars, in which case, go you! And after I had all of that down, it was time to decorate the spread a little bit. And for that, I used one of my absolute favorite forest washi tapes, and of course I had to draw a little pine tree, just to, you know, keep up with the theme. Now, this next spread is actually another new spread for me, and it is a mood tracker. I've sort of been doing habit trackers / mood trackers in a grid fashion, but I find that it didn't really work for me, and I have seen a bunch of people doing these more creative mood trackers, so I thought I would give it a shot. Plus, I know that a lot of people generally like them, so I thought that it would be nice to include them in my setup in case you're looking for some ideas. So here I pretty much doodled a bunch of pine trees that are very similar to the ones on the title page, and then I put the dates in the trunks. And of course I'm going to color them in based on the little legend at the bottom. And on the right is another first for me, and it is my first ever quote spread. And honestly, I decided to add it in just because I didn't really know what else to add on the right, and I thought that a quote spread would be a nice thing to try. And I have to say, I actually really like how this came out. And the quote I chose is, "The bad news is time flies, the good news is you're the pilot." And I thought that it would be a really fitting quote for January, which is the first month of the year. And so it's definitely a great time to take control of how you're going to pilot your time. Anyways, I ended up decorating the spread in a more scrapbooky style with this polar bear photo and a little bit of wintry washi tape, and I actually really like how the two spreads look together side by side. And next up we have, I'm not gonna lie, what is my least favorite spread of this entire setup. I mean, the idea seemed really interesting in my head, but when I actually executed it, I don't know, it just felt too plain and simple, but I didn't really know how to fix it. Anyways, you can see that I drew the outlines of two large pine trees, and that is where the writing is gonna go. I put the headings in the trunks, and then to decorate the spread just a little bit more, I stamped some green snowflakes all around them. And even looking back at these spreads as I'm doing this voiceover, I still have no idea how to fix them. So if you have any ideas, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Luckily, the next spread was definitely one that I was quite a bit happier with, although it still didn't come out looking quite the way it did in my head, but that's just because I misjudged the colors. The pine trees on the sides of the page were actually going to be ombre and going from darkest to lightest, but when I actually started coloring them in with my gel pens, I realized that the color variation was so minimal that you couldn't really tell the difference. I still like how this looks though, even if it is a very simple spread. And the next spread is actually one of my favorites in the setup, even if it is really simple. And I started off with this large pine tree that I colored in with gel pens. And you might have noticed that I like using gel pens a lot for the rest of my spreads, and that's just because the Crayola markers do bleed through the pages quite a bit, and I don't really like to have that other than on my title page, for which I just really like the color variation, and the gel pens are nice and sparkly, so that adds a nice little touch as well. Anyways, now that I'm done with this rather longer than expected side note, the rest of the spread I decorated with some more forest-themed washi tape and a couple of forest-themed stickers. Did I mention that this forest-themed set of washi tape is one of my absolute favorites out of all of the ones that I own? Just thought I'd throw that in there because you will definitely be seeing it more in this setup. And for this next spread we have more pine trees. Surprise, surprise, but I mean, it is the theme of this setup. So this time I drew one on each side, and I pretty much colored them in the same way that I did the larger pine tree on the spread before that. But for this spread I actually decided to add a little bit of my more scrapbooking style and write the heading on a piece of scrapbooking paper. And of course I added more of the same forest washi tape because, well, by now you know how much I love it. And I decorated the left top side just because there was an empty space there with a little bit more washi tape from the same set. So this time, the pine trees have moved to the bottom of the spread. We've had them in the middle, we've had them on the sides, and now they are at the bottom. This time I added a little bit more variation in the size and the shape of the pine trees, and I added a little bit more variation by adding two colors into the trees, rather than just coloring them in one. And I really liked the sort of foresty effect that this gave the spread, and of course to decorate the rest of it I added a little sort of forest-themed sticker at the top and a little bit of the forest-themed washi tape from the same set, except this one is thinner, and I sort of used it to underline the headings. This next spread is actually another one of my favorites from this setup, and it's definitely very much scrapbook themed. I have to say it was kind of nice to make one of these spreads again and to pull out all of these different elements and to sort of try to combine them in a fun way. I don't know, I kind of missed doing that, but for some reason I just didn't feel like it went so well with the rest of the spreads in this setup, but I definitely went for it here. As you can see, I added some green tissue paper into this spread, and I sort of drew the pine tree over it, but the pine tree parts that were on the white part of the paper I colored in green and brown. I also used a little bit of that same paper for the heading. And the rest of the spread is pretty much just an explosion of scrapbooking paper, some green metallic paper, a whole bunch of washi tape, and of course some of my favorite winter forest themed stickers. And if you notice, there's even a little polar bear down at the bottom. I mean, I didn't actually plan to add it in as a nod to my channel name, but I don't know, I thought it was kind of fun anyways, and I do really like polar bears and all manner of forest creatures. And we have reached the last spread, and here we're starting with some pine trees at the top, which is probably the only place I haven't yet had pine trees during this setup, so of course I had to add them in at the top as well, for, you know, completion purposes. And the rest of the spread I decorated with some winter-themed washi tape actually, as a little change from the forest-themed washi tape. I did plan to use the winter-themed washi tape more, but for some reason I only ended up using it for 2 spreads. I did think that it went very well with this particular spread though, and I like that it made the spread a little bit different from the other ones I've done so far. Now, of course, it is time for the final flip through of all of the spreads that we did in this setup. Whew, that was definitely quite a few, more than I usually do. But I think that they all, with the exception of the one spread that you probably remember, came out pretty nice, and I even have a few favorites. Of course, I would absolutely love to hear which spreads were your favorites from this setup, and generally what you thought about this theme and this video. Also, do you have any fun plans for the holidays, or for the new year? I actually don't have any plans for the holidays as of this moment other than taking a break and spending some time with my family, and I am really hoping to get my Christmas tree up before the 24th, because right now it's looking like it might not happen, since I kinda still have to paint the room that it's going to be in, but who knows, maybe it will all work out in the end. Anyways, I hope that you have an amazing holiday season, an amazing new year, and an amazing January. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!